Hi everybody, this is Max J. Miller, the author of the upcoming How Is That Working? This is a work about Robert Hollis that I co-wrote with him. And yesterday's video, I got a few comments that that I was unclear. And what people were saying was that the video was out of focus. I shot it on my iPhone and I still don't know why that happened. But I'll tell you, previously in my life, if somebody said I was unclear, I would have been upset and kind of come unglued because it was a hot button issue for me. And it actually is for most people a fear of speaking in public, even to a small group. People get nervous about that. In fact, it's the number one fear. More people are afraid of speaking in public than the fear of death. So, and a lot of research has borne that out. But in my case, I was really terrified of talking even in front of a small group. And I think that went back to I was just a very excitable child, and I would try to tell stories, and I would fill in too many details, and I had that kind of ADD thing going on. And people would often say things like, well, get to the point. What are you trying to tell me? And it would really upset me. And then I remember also having a kind of an overcoming experience about that as well. And that was in second grade. My teacher was Mrs. Ruzich. She had taught me in first grade as well as second grade, and I loved Mrs. Ruzich. And she challenged us to come in and tell a story in front of the class. I remember that some of the kids just weren't able to do it. They were just too terrified. But I had taken on the challenge, and even though I was terrified, I worked on telling a story, and she said you could embellish it. You can basically take this opportunity to lie about your life experience, because I want you to have the experience of getting up in front of people and telling a story and, you know, having it be interesting. So my mother actually suggested that I tell the story about how I was sort of home alone one time when a tornado hit, and I really had been home alone. And the funny thing about this particular incident is my mother had taken the china out of the cabinet and was cleaning it, and it was all on the dining room table, which happened to sit in front of a big picture window facing this lake. Well, guess what? You know, the tornado hit, and I was home alone, and there was the china. And I actually knew what to do, and it wasn't all that dramatic. It was probably more dramatic for her, since she was imagining that the china was sitting there and the tornado came through, and what would happen if the tornado hit our house and the glass and so forth. It didn't hit our house. It hit fairly close. But we used that story, and I embellished it and described how the tornado came by and swooped that lake right up into the sky, and, you know, anyway. But it was probably all of a minute and a half that I spoke, but I wrote it out in advance. She helped me to write it out. They said, you know, it's okay to have your parents help you write the story, and then come and tell it. Read it or tell it if you can. And I memorized it because I was just so afraid of reading or speaking in public that way. And I memorized it. And I remember I got a great reaction from everybody, and everybody was really sort of surprised because I didn't like to even speak up in class because I was nervous about how I was going to cross or whether it was going to make sense and whether people were going to get impatient with me. And that was a huge win. Not only did that day, I remember that day as sort of why I got the bug for acting, and many of you know I've performed for over 500,000 people. I've had a pretty successful career as an actor. But now I'm a writer, and I attribute that event for why I'm a writer today, because of how exciting it was to actually be able to present my thoughts or my ideas clearly and succinctly, which comes from being able to sit and rewrite and edit. And that was a whole new world to me compared to extemporaneous speaking. And I really think that it was an event like that, and probably others, but that taught me, you know, how important it was to write, and to, you know, for a writer, editing is really the secret. So even to this day, that overcoming that particular fear is really the source of my success in life. So I wanted to share that story with you. I know it was unclear, or my picture was unclear, and I wanted to make lemonade out of my lemons. Thanks. Bye-bye.